Welcome to the Holiday Impact, the podcast that reminds you that you have the power to make a difference. I'm your host, Shante Holiday, and each week we'll explore the mindset, habits, and strategies that will help you overcome obstacles, seize opportunities, and create positive impact in your life and your business. Joining me today is Sabina. Hello, how are you?
Hi, thank you for having me.
I appreciate you so much being here. You already know that I know and love you, but could you please introduce yourself and what you do for those that don't know you yet?
Sure, thank you. And the love is mutual. So I'm Sabina Sulat, and I am an author. I write about the workplace. My book is Agile Unemployment, and right now what I do is I help people get through being out of work and look at this as a time of not only getting through it, but building resilience so that they can go back to work confident, strong, and able to focus on their new job.
Oh, I love that. So, can you give us a little bit of information on your background on how you became an expert on employment and career coaching?
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you asked. I have this kind of, uh, I always refer to it as like a poo-poo platter of employment, meaning that it comes from different areas. And I feel like right now it all came together beautifully. But my background is in human resources, organizational development, which is how a company is structured, learning and development. I've worked in healthcare. I've worked for the federal government. I worked for global organizations. And I'll tell you my kind of origin story. In 2018, I had what I thought was my dream job. And I thought I'd arrived. I was head of learning and development for a very prestigious organization. I had this idea that this would be my last corporate gig. I would get an advanced degree in organizational development. I would go ahead and start writing about the workplace. It's always fascinated me. I love how we work. Unfortunately, I lost my job after 6 months, and for the first time in my life, I was out of work.
Yeesh.
And I wasn't prepared on any level. And I can laugh about it now, but it was a very scary time because figuring everything out was so
Right.
hard. The administrative part. I think you might be shocked by this, and I say that with a little sarcasm. State organizations do not clearly state out what you need to do to file the paperwork and for different programs for being out of work and getting assistance. But then there was that emotional impact. I thought I was really good at what I did, and losing my job made me question everything. And I struggled. And when I got a job, and it took a little longer than I would have liked,
Mhm.
I no longer had the same joy for it. I wanted to help people. And that's where writing the book and helping people and coaching them started. I worked for a pharmaceutical company, and because of the pandemic, I lost my job again.
Goodness.
And I was okay with it because I'm like,
Right.
it's no longer what I want to do. I've changed, and this is my new direction. So that's my superhero story.
So, how did you have that mindset shift from who am I? Am I good enough? Was I ever good enough for this job to I want to help people and I know my calling now? Because I'm sure that road was rocky to discovering that.
It really was. I hadn't thought about it. It was very organic at the time, and it just kind of happened. But looking back, lots of bumps. You called that correctly. Any time when I was out of work the first time, when I would learn something new, without a doubt, it was through it costing me time, money, effort. And then the solution was so easy. And I'd be like, no one tells you about this.
Right.
And it was little things, but then it was big things. And I think what was paramount to me, it wasn't just taking care of myself financially and things like that. I had some early wins in being unemployed. And there was one job I interviewed, believe it or not, for 4 months for. It was a really great role. I didn't get it, and I was devastated, and I got physically sick. I became very depressed. And one of the things that saved me was friends, people who loved me, cared about me. And I
Mm.
had a mentor who said, I think you need to, you're in the Northeast, it's cold, it's rainy, it's spring. She lived along the Gulf of Mexico and said, come visit, I'll pay for you to come visit, spend the weekend. I looked up to this woman so much when we worked together. I was flattered we stayed friends. But she sat me down and had a talk with me of, this is not the you I've known. And she was
Right.
right. And ironically, she said to me, I think you should go out on your own. I think you can help people. I think you should coach. You should think about hanging out a shingle. And I said, I just don't have the bandwidth right now.
Right.
But coming home from that trip, I had this epiphany of self-care
Right.
and being with her, staying with her for a weekend, being out in the sun, following a routine. She was very health conscious. I followed structure for the first time in months. And I was like, I feel better. I need to keep doing this.
Right.
I think that went a long way to helping me get better and face looking for a job. And that's one thing I really try to impress upon people is it's not just about getting another job, it's recovering from the trauma of losing a job and then just trying to get through every day.
Right.
I think that's one of the things that I wanted to educate people about. I write about it in the book. I coach to it.
Goodness. Well, I'm proud of you for getting out of that slump because I can only imagine how you felt in that dark space, you know?
Mhm.
So I think it's amazing that you were able to overcome it so you could help others do the same, which is awesome, right? It came full circle. But while you said something that like it really kind of spoke to me. You were like, you got support from your circle. So
Mhm.
did all of your friends stay your friend? Did you had to kind of eliminate certain people? How were you able to kind of pinpoint who your support system was, who your tribe was when going through this?
That is a fabulous question. And here's the thing. So I talk very openly about this. When I lost my job, it was about a week or so before a college reunion.
Oh,
So few things say I'm successful as, I'm unemployed. I live in the town of my alma mater,
okay.
and people who I knew were coming to stay with me. I at the time was on my college alumni board.
Right.
So board members were staying with me, people who believed in me, saw leadership things in me, and I wanted to look good in front of them. And this is what happens when you lose your job. You question yourself, but especially in the US, we have this kind of shame when
Yeah,
you've done nothing wrong. It was a reorganization.
right.
So when I lost my job, intellectually, I can understand it. Professionally, I understand it. They had to combine departments. I had been there 6 months as opposed to someone else who had been there 6 years. I
Right.
didn't know the culture as well, obviously.
Right. Right.
On the books, it made sense, but it was devastating to me. I questioned my own abilities. And that made me and this happens to most people who lose their jobs, you're very embarrassed to talk about it
Right.
because we tend to blame people like, what did you do that you lost your job?
Right.
And I had all these friends staying with me, and I didn't tell them until about a day and a half in, where
Mhm.
I finally, you're up late talking to all the friends you hung out with in school, and it finally came out. And of course, everyone was so supportive. And why didn't you tell us? Let us know. And people would give me, phone calls, emails, making sure I was supported. But to your point, you asked a good question. The longer we're unemployed, that friend group tends to drift off. And I
Right.
have found the 6 month mark
Mhm.
is when people stop asking because it's awkward.
Right.
They might be going through something and have to focus on themselves. There's so much to unwrap in that. But when you're the person out of work, it's so hard because you need every bit of support. You're right. It did show me who was my tribe, who were my friends.
Right.
Uh, there were people who suddenly forgot my phone number and weren't returning texts and invitations and
Mhm.
things like that. And that hurts when you're already down, that just piles on.
Right.
Uh, I think, I hate to say this, but a if there's an upside of tragedy, it is the fact that you really do know who is with you for the long haul.
Right.
And I will say that those friends, I value them. I adore them. I'm so grateful to them. And it's not just your friend group, it's your professional network. Everybody's there in the beginning. As things go on, and I've talked about this not only in the book but the podcast, there is like kind of that those marathon friends who are going to be there for the whole 26.25 miles or whatever a marathon is. And you learn who's just your friend when times are good. You you need people who are there regardless. You also need to be that person for others. That was definitely a lesson learned.
Right. Right. No, I'm glad and stuff there that you had those good
Mhm.
friends to kind of anchor onto because everyone doesn't have that though. So,
Yeah.
what would be your suggestion for people that don't have that anchor, that support system and stuff there? Like, what would your suggestion be to them on how to get that?
No, I'm really glad you asked because I will say this. I also picked up new friends. Uh,
Oh, like
there,
making adult friends is so hard, right?
it
Like
is.
sometimes,
But
like,
the other thing is that common kind of setback
mhm,
bonds people to a point where it's almost hard to separate us. A
true.
lot of states and a lot of groups
Mhm.
have organizations to support people through being out of work.
Oh,
Uh, I know that my state, Maryland, has phenomenal networking activities. They
mhm,
have organizations. Through my work now, I've learned what other states do.
mhm.
I admit it can be hit or miss. I think you have to explore it and take every venue. You're going to need every friend you could get your hands on.
Right.
The other thing is things like I'm part of a learning collective where a group who have worked in corporate learning, we meet once a week to problem solve with each other. There's a social element. I have friends from that group who are now social friends, even though
Oh,
they live sometimes half a globe away in another city. We call each other, we share ideas, we support one another. So that's an area for people to explore as well, and also keep up your professional skills. But
right.
I'm also friends with people who I met in line at the SNAP office
Oh,
because
okay.
you you have that commonality.
Right.
I never filed for SNAP before, and for people who don't know, that's the supplemental nutritional program. Some of us grew up hearing it of the Independence Card or
Right.
food stamps, which I think now has kind of a negative connotation. These
Right.
assistant programs are there to help people,
Right.
and you should take advantage of them. But meeting others who like, you're kind of like wearing the dark glasses and the big floppy hat, and you're like, I don't want anyone I know to see me walk in here. But there's no shame in it. And you meet people who can help you navigate through the system. And that happened to me. I do that now for other people.
Mhm.
So it's on all levels. I've met people in job interviews who I am still in touch with. It's pretty much everywhere.
Right.
I think one of the best ways to get through your own setback, and
Mhm.
I'll use that word, is to help someone else because it reminds you that no one exists alone.
Right.
You want someone to do that for you. Sometimes you have to be the first person to make that move. It's so
Right.
easy to say, like, no one's here to help me, but then you have to sit there and say, what am I doing for other people I know? And we can all always do one little thing
Right.
to do. And I'm really proud. Like I'm still friends with so many people I met during that time and
Right.
even
Right.
now.
And it can be awkward putting yourself out there
Yeah.
sometimes. And the worst case scenario is that you guys don't end up being BFFs for life, but like at least you tried, right? Um, so
And
I
I think
love that.
some people, sorry, I think some people, you might not be meant to be BFFs. You're maybe meant to be that person who helped them, like
You're
that kindness
receiving.
of strangers thing.
Exactly.
And you'll always remember it. And it's that great moment where you realize people really do want to help each other.
Right.
I am a firm believer in that.
Absolutely. I believe that too, for sure. And stuff. Sometimes everyone's just like in a different season though,
Yeah.
and they're just still learning that part. But ultimately, I mean, we are all here to kind of help each other. So, and when someone says that, like, no one wants to be my friend, no one wants to be my client, I'm like, did you talk to all 7 billion people today? Like,
I did. It was exhausting. It was a long day. I talked to everyone in the world.
that's what I was like, let's reevaluate that statement. So like things like that. But I
Mhm.
love how you are able to balance everything, right? And so I know you have a book,
Mhm.
Agile Unemployment, right? So what
Yes,
inspired you to write that book? And can you share some key takeaways for me from the book itself?
absolutely. And so this is going to be a little bit of a long anecdote, but bear with me. It ends well.
Fine.
When I was going through things, I would say to myself, why is it not all in one place? You
Mm,
can find things on state websites, a few other things, and that covered what I call the administrative part.
right,
And the emotional part, we don't do a great job of addressing in this country.
right.
And I would always, whenever I would have, uh, you know, an issue and I would resolve it, I would say to myself, I'm going to write a book one day. And it was more of this kind of sarcastic response to things. And once in a while, I would think I should really do that. And then something else would happen that would get in the way of that thought. And when I went back to work, I will be honest, it was no longer my problem. I had a job. I didn't care.
She's like,
I
what
didn't
book?
care. Yeah, exactly. Other things happened. And let's fast forward to the pandemic.
Right.
And right as it was starting, I had somebody connect with me on LinkedIn. And I don't accept a lot of responses on LinkedIn, or I didn't at the time. And
Right.
I don't know why I accepted this person as a connection, but I was like, sure, why not? And we were sent home from work because of the pandemic. We were told you're going to work remotely now. Found myself at home at 2 in the afternoon, which never happened. I had a hour commute each way on a good day.
Mhm.
And I got a ping on my phone that this person's podcast was live.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, I didn't know they had a podcast. I'm home. Why not listen to a podcast? And it
Right.
was this person and their book coach. And their book coach and they were talking about just the accomplishment of writing a book
Mhm.
and how the book coach was saying, can I mention names?
Of course.
The book, so
Please.
the person, his name is Andy Storch. He wrote a book called Own Your Career, Own Your Life.
Mhm.
And his book coach is a woman, Honoré Corridor, who is, I believe, nothing short of brilliant. And I listen to the podcast. It's all like, yay, let's go. Let's all write a book. At the same time, a friend texted me to make sure, are you okay in the pandemic? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm home. I'm great. And he's like, what are you doing? And I said, I'm listening to this podcast. And I made the comment of, they want everyone to write a book. I could have written this book about unemployment because people are going to lose their jobs during the pandemic. And
Right.
my friend just kind of texted me, you could still do that, right? And I'm like, clearly I did not. So I started writing that night.
That
And
same
I
night.
reached out to Andy and said, you loved your podcast. You inspired me. This is my topic.
Mhm.
Andy is this very outgoing, enthusiastic person who wants to help everyone as well. He talked his book coach into talking to me.
Mhm.
She had ideas. Andy runs that learning group that I talked about earlier, and he was so supportive, and it all just happened. I no longer had the commute because of the pandemic. I would write every day and came up with the book. And then when I found myself again facing unemployment, there were a bunch of us at work that were on the chopping block. I had a friend who was also, his job was in jeopardy. He had read a very early draft. We
Mhm.
were all sitting in a meeting and he said, of all of us who are losing their jobs, you're the only one prepared for this. And I'm like, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So it all kind of, I think these big life changes happen almost seamlessly. And then you look out at it and you see this alignment of everything. And it's almost scary of, wow, I was really meant to do this.
I
Because
love
even though
it.
I went back to working, the universe was saying, no, I think you need to get into this realm. And so I've leaned into it.
So how long would you write a day? Because that requires a lot of discipline and consistency.
It does. I decided I would write during the time I would have normally been commuting.
Hmm.
And so I would say it was about 2 hours a day.
Gotcha.
And it would be about 2,000 words each hour session. I got to be pretty good at it. I'm not saying they were high quality words. I can't stress that enough.
So would you like lock yourself in your room, like your office and stuff there? Would you just like get a cup of tea on the couch kind of thing? And then set like a timer or like, 'cause
No, I love this question. There's a method of if you're procrastinating doing something, there's a learning method where you set a 20-minute timer.
okay.
And I'm going to get the name wrong. I think it's Pomodoro method.
Yeah, I do
People
that.
can
I have
correct me.
to.
Right. And the idea is that you can do anything for 20 minutes. You could do it. You could set the timer for 10 or 15, whatever you think you could reasonably invest in doing something. So if you
Right.
have to clean out your closet, you spend 20 minutes doing it.
Mhm.
The thought process is you get engaged during that time. So you 20 more minutes
Right.
or you've at least put in 20 minutes to something. So I
Right.
would do the writing for 20 minutes and then I used Alexa and I'd be like, okay, extend the timer again, extend it again. And it worked out really well for me.
Right.
I'm a morning person
Right.
and I get up excruciatingly early. So I would just first thing in the morning start writing.
God. So how long did it take you to write the book?
Uh, Writing out a first draft
Right.
probably took me about, I would say 4 months,
Okay.
writing every day. It's the getting what you think is a reasonable first draft and then
Mhm.
editing that takes the time period away. I now help people write books,
Right.
and I talked to a friend yesterday who has a book, and he keeps saying, "Well, it's not where I want it to be." And
Right.
I told him point blank, like, it never will be. You will have a love-hate relationship with your book, which I have, and there are times where I'll look at it and I'll think, "Why did I do that? This could have been so much better." And then there are other times where I'm like, "Yeah, I kind of like it."
Right.
And I think that comes when it's something from the heart and we believe in it. And I tried not to lose sight of the goal of I wanted to be able to help other people.
Right.
And I think when the day is done, it does that. That's the feedback I get. That makes me very happy and joyful. Um, and it's the not being a perfectionist, which none of us know what that's like.
Oh man.
So that's the hard part too when you write a book.
Exactly. But I feel like it's almost like with any artist and their baby,
Mhm.
you're always going to be critiquing yourself. You're always going to
Absolutely.
want to be better, and stuff there. And like, it's going to be hard for you to see through another person's lenses, but it's always good to give yourself a little grace. So I encourage people and stuff there to definitely check out your book and stuff
Thank
there.
you.
What are a few, so a lot of people though, right, that watch that I know follow me, my platform, are aspiring business owners
Mhm.
and business owners. And I know a lot of people kind of fell into their business. I'm trying to put it nicely, but when they were kicked out of someone else's. So, with that, do you feel like they would benefit from your book? Um,
I think so. Yes,
because
I
I
do. I
thought
believe they
so,
would.
but I wanted to hear your like, your thoughts on
I
it though.
thank you. And excuse me. Sorry, a little
Oh,
dry
no worries. Like,
dry air here. You'll edit that out, right?
I was like, of course.
I I didn't want just to write a book about how to get another job. I think that's a
Right.
big mistake people make when they lose their job. It's this immediate, oh, I've got to go home and apply to things. I'm actually working on an article that says that's the biggest mistake you can make. What you need to do, and this is, I think, I didn't answer your earlier question of takeaways. Besides that self care and building a routine,
Mhm.
it's that this is a good time to sit back and say, what do I really want?
Right.
I don't know if I'm a fan of, it's a blessing that you lost your job. I think it might be that message of you're not doing what you should be doing.
Right.
And this unemployment period, or sometimes we don't have it in us to walk away on our own. We need to be
Right.
pushed out that door. Sometimes the universe
Hard.
does that for us. It did for me. And it's that, okay, why is this not like why me, but
Mhm.
why is this happening question?
Right.
And was I really doing what I was meant to do? I
Mhm.
loved corporate work. I still do. I'm fascinated by the workplace. Office politics weren't for me. Climbing the ladder wasn't for me.
Hard.
I like examining how we work and making work better for people. Those were things I loved in my corporate life. And
Mhm.
those are things I now do in this, entrepreneur life that I have. And I would
Right.
say for people to look at being, it doesn't have to be losing your job. It could be not getting a promotion.
Right.
And one of the first questions I ask any coaching client is, was what you were doing really aligned to who you are?
Mhm.
And a lot of people aren't sure who they are anymore because we're in this survival mode of doing, and we don't do that self-care, that inner reflection. Sometimes it's a self-awareness thing. I think you need to take a little time and do that kind of inner work. And I don't mean to be touchy-feely about it. It could
I
just
love it.
be,
Yeah.
what are my values? What are my skills? What do I
Right.
enjoy? And thinking, do I want to go back and do like a 2.0 of the job I just left or the environment I just left? Or do I want to do this complete reboot
Right.
of doing something new? And this is where people find their destiny. They find their joy. And I'm definitely an example of that.
I love that. So, in other words, stuff that you're saying, instead of immediately going after another job for just survival's sake, just kind
Mhm.
of pause and look at what you actually enjoy doing in life, other than the rat race. There's nothing wrong with having a 9 to 5. Good
Oh
Lord,
gosh,
we
no.
put food on the table, you guys. But
Mhm.
keep your lights on, all the fun stuff. But I absolutely love that message of just like, just kind of look at who you are and what you actually like to do, right? Because I feel like that gets lost when you're clocking in and clocking out every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something you and I were talking about before we were recording is that practice of the inner work, be it, and it's different for every person,
Right.
be it if you meditate, be it if you journal, be it if you just sit back at the end of the day and give yourself a pat on the back for what went well and think about what you do differently. That should be a habit. That shouldn't be a one-time practice. It shouldn't be going to a retreat once a year or anything like that.
Once a quarter, I'm
This
going to
should be a
smile.
daily, yeah, this should be a routine
Exactly.
because we are not stagnant beings. We change and evolve all the time. Our
Right.
circumstances, our family. I know friends of mine who what they wanted when they were single, when they became parents, that completely changed. So
Immediately.
you should always reflect the life you want and practice for that. And that inner reflection is key.
I love that. So I know that you have your own coaching and stuff
Mhm.
there, options. So what does it look like? So like let's say I'm out of a job, right? Fresh unemployed, it's been 48 hours and I feel like complete trash. Right?
Oh,
Like it's the I just want to
yeah.
paint the picture for you. So I find you on LinkedIn and
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, let me set up a call and see just see it just out of curiosity and stuff like that, and I'm accepted into your program, right? Because I'm sure not everyone qualifies and stuff. So what does it look like working with you and stuff there? What does a person have to expect?
Okay. I'm stumbling on that, like, not everyone is accepted into your program, and I think if you just want someone to help you get a job immediately, I'm not your coach. And I make it pretty clear on that, because there are thousands of coaches who do that.
Right.
And what I do is very different. I'm not sure anyone else is doing what I do right now. I hope that changes because I think there is a need. but it is unique and it's a little hard to explain to somebody.
Right.
But first, we'll kind of have a conversation of what you've been through.
Hmm.
I also explain that, again, if you want someone to just do the resume rewrite, look at LinkedIn, help you get another job, I don't do just that. And if that's all you want, I'm not the person for you. I do know other people that I will direct you towards.
Just like right over
What,
here.
yeah, what I will specialize in is the whole person. I'm going to teach you resilience because at any given time in the US, there are 6 million people who are unemployed,
Yeesh.
which
Okay.
is sad. But what's even sadder is we are not counting every person out of work.
Right.
The way the government pulls statistics, and we're not talking like they don't even include people who are long-term unemployed. It's sad. It's almost like you don't matter anymore.
Right.
Programs cut people off, things like that. So to me, it's a thing of I'm going to teach you to build resilience so that should this happen again, you will still feel that despondency. You will still feel that, unfortunately, that grief, that sadly we feel shame,
Right.
which that is so wrong. Don't feel shame if you've lost your job. But I'm going to teach you that I give you the tools so that you'll do this on your own should this happen to you again, and you'll be able to do it. That unemployment period will probably be shorter, but you will have known how to resolve it. That's half the issue when people lose their jobs is you feel alone, you don't know what to do. I kind of teach you. It's like I don't give you the fish, I teach you to fish. So I
Right.
teach you how to do your resume, your LinkedIn page, how to align with the job that you want, how to build a network that you can leverage for success. I teach that.
Oh,
And I want you to be healthy and confident so that when you go back to work, you are able to focus on that new job. And it takes so much when you go back to work and you're learning a new organization, a new company. Unfortunately, for most people, that's when they start to actually feel the effects of losing the first job. They feel the trauma,
mm,
and it's hard to then focus on the new job. One of the things I strive to do is to eliminate that, so that, again, you focus on the current, not the past.
right.
Uh, I teach you self care, I teach you to build a routine, and it's customized for you.
I
It's
love that.
not, what somebody tells you to do in a book. I teach you to figure out what works for you.
Gotcha. So it sounds like you dive a lot into the mindset that comes with like the stigma of being unemployed, or even like if a person is fresh self-employed and they're just trying to figure out their way a little bit
Mhm.
of how to grow from there. I love that. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you today, is because I like how you focus on where the person is at, not just physically, but emotionally and stuff there, and how they can get realigned with themselves. Because as we all know, our society could definitely dive a little bit more on mental health, right? So, so I feel like if there's more people like you out there helping others get through that hump and get past that darkness, they can, end up succeeding a little bit faster,
I hope
or fail
so.
gracefully.
I like to say I give people a safe place to talk about unemployment.
Okay.
In the podcast, the book, we need to have better conversations. There is hope. I
Hmm.
think we're starting to change a little bit how we look at it. The pandemic has been a great equalizer in that.
Absolutely.
Things that used to be, the kiss of death on a resume are no more. We are changing how we look at work. I'm glad
Right.
to be a part of that,
Right.
however tiny, and we have strides to go.
Right.
But no one should feel shame about losing a job. No one should feel they can't talk about it. You
Hmm.
can't get past it without doing that kind of healing.
Right.
And keeping it bottled in is doing no one any good.
Gotcha. Well, I absolutely love that. Now, what are some common misconceptions about unemployment, about and how do you like address them with your clients, gently?
I think the gentle touch is always needed. I think the first thing is, first of all, even I've worked with people who've been let go for cause.
Mhm.
And I think the number one thing, be it if you've been part of a reorg, for cause, anything like that, is the fact that this is a defining moment for you, but it's not a moment that defines you. You do not have to carry this around like an albatross for the rest of your life of, oh, there's Sabina, she lost her job back in.
Right.
It's not. It's a blip, but it can also be your moment of, this is where I found out what I wanted to do.
Right.
And that sort of thing. So I think that initial hit of lack of confidence, I have people list their accomplishments and their skills so they can see you've done good. You've done sometimes really great things.
Mhm.
You are a person who has a skill set that can go to multiple careers.
Mhm.
And you need to give yourself credit for that and be kinder to yourself. There will always be someone who is unkind to you, unfortunately. You have to accept yourself and what's happened, and that will help you move forward. So that's like a huge thing that I help people with. The other thing is to sit back with them and say, like, let's make sure. So there's generally considered 8 areas of self-care.
Right.
And I'm going to be honest, I am not like a touchy-feely type. I think I'm very empathetic, but I'm also like, okay, let's use that to move forward. But
Right.
there's a common sense part that says I need to make sure I'm in order financially,
Mhm.
health wise, professionally, all of those areas of self care. I work with people to make sure that those are as optimal as they can be while you're unemployed, and then you don't lose those habits.
Right.
So I think those are some things that I want people to learn and to take away. And
Gotcha.
then you use that to build your new future.
I love that. So, can you do me a favor? Could you share some of your success stories or case studies, your work as a career coach and stuff there? Like, yeah, just like your favorite one so far.
There's so many. Oh, and I don't mean to be immodest. I think it's just the fact that it was a struggle for me being out of work, and to have helped someone else in that struggle,
Mhm.
it does make me feel really good about myself and the work that I'm doing, and that I saved someone else all of that kind of self-imposed negativity uh,
Right.
that happens. I I have a client who's been a client since August,
Mhm.
and they were referred to me by another organization. And I will say this,
Mhm.
this person is very fragile. They were when they first came to me, to a point where they they had my name and they said, well, I'm not going to be ready to work with you for a while,
Right.
like months. And like, okay, there's no pressure. And then they found a job they wanted to apply for.
Mhm.
They were so kind of beaten down.
Mhm.
And this is not a comment on the individual, it's just a comment on the system and what they
Right.
went through.
Right.
And life, what life happens to all of us. We had to build the resume in real time because they felt incapable of doing it themselves, and then stay on the line. They decided to work with me immediately because they saw a job they thought they could do. Normally I tell someone, don't jump into doing a job, but for that person, I thought it was the right thing.
Right.
I think that very, very deep investment helped them. They didn't get the job. And I
Right.
was a little worried, like, this might send them over the edge. Instead, it empowered them to, okay, let's see what else we need to do. We've focused on self care.
Okay.
And I would say this person, what I admire is the progress has been slow. Their enthusiasm and tenacity has only increased.
I
And they know they have very big steps to go. Like I said, this is probably the person who's had the most setbacks of anybody I've ever worked with.
right. Work is
And
constant.
yeah, and they they will point blank say, I really didn't want to meet with you. I almost canceled.
Oh.
And the fact that they showed up, and they do more than show up. They every between every session, they come up with something to do. They take ownership, because
Right.
it's not me, folks. I'm like the accountability, the support. You actually have to do the work. They work so hard, and the progress I've seen them come in, and very recently they're initiating things I never would have thought they'd done. If there was anyone I thought would have just stopped talking to me, it would have been this person. Instead, they're like, no, I had this idea and this is how I've pursued it. Uh, and watching them grow as a person has been so gratifying to me. And most recently, they've had financial hardship. Something worked out where they actually have breathing room, as we're calling it. I suggested they take some time off from everything and just reflect. They kind of fought me a little bit on it. And then yesterday I got the email of, I'm letting you know I'm officially on vacation, in quotes, and I will see you. Can we make an appointment for this time? I'm going to take care of me for this time. I'm going to just focus on me and do something nice for myself.
Oh.
When I know when I first met that person in August, they thought focusing on themselves was selfish and wrong. Now they realize it's giving them the strength to take care of the others who they have to take care of and get that future that they want. I'm so proud of them. And that's like one of my favorite stories.
I love that. So
Mhm.
when as a career coach, is it okay if I call you a career coach?
Sure.
Is that okay? Like, I don't think I was like, I
In this
kind of like,
instance, yes.
I've just been waving the flag and just doing it like willy-nilly. And well, we're like 18 questions in and I ask, I'm sorry. but but what are some of the biggest challenges you face as a career coach and how do you overcome them?
Good question. Someone pointed this out to me when I started doing this, and they said, you do know that you're dealing with a segment of the population where money is an issue and being able to earn a living. And I'm like, yeah, I maybe
I
did
was
not think
curious
this one.
myself.
I
Absolutely.
did not think this one through all the way, maybe. And I wanted to have kind of tiers of TIERS, not EARS,
Mhm.
of levels of help that I could give people. So my book is for free on Amazon Kindle Unlimited. You can get the book for free. I made the decision to do that
Wow.
because I understand you might not have money. So you have access to this information. I have a website. I blog on LinkedIn all the time. If you are like me and you like to hold a book in your hands, the book is at cost on Kindle or on Amazon.
Right.
And I think it's less than $7.
Goodness. Okay.
So there are those resources. I have a podcast that's free, and I talk about all this stuff on the podcast. I have scholarship clients, and those are people who I will talk to at either a reduced rate. I decided when I was building this business, I wanted to have a certain number of, pro bono clients because, again, I wanted to work with the people I wanted to work with and do this kind of work. I have people who pay what I think is a standard coaching fee in this country. I
Mhm.
help people transition careers. I help people who feel job insecure. They have a job,
Right.
but they don't necessarily like where their company is going.
Right.
Uh, you you hear it all the time in the news, like Amazon layoffs, Meta layoffs. I have people in those companies who come to me before it happens. And how do I prepare for uh, possibly losing my job? They get charged, I'll be honest, they get charged a little more because they have a job
Right.
and they have that luxury. And I am very honest. I'm like, you're subsidizing people who can't.
And you
Uh,
can eat that, like you have to eat too, right? Like,
exactly. I need to keep the lights on so I can keep doing this. I'm building out another area of the business to address people who are starting their careers,
right.
students who are in college and high school.
Oh,
I have a book that's coming out at the end of the summer on that topic.
mhm.
That's a whole different way of business for me, and that's a part of the population that could probably pay. I understand I'm starting with a group that needs help the most.
Right.
It's a group I relate to, having walked in those shoes, and I'm
Right.
trying to address every economic angle of it and offer this information to anyone who needs it. I would not want to I think sometimes in this country we're a little elitist, might not be the right word, but people who need resources don't often know where they are and are able to access them. I wanted to make sure people who needed this could.
God.
And that's what I did. I'm looking into things like a course, as you well know, to help people. And it'll probably follow that same model. I do work with organizations where they pay me a small stipend and I'll go in and talk to a whole group at once.
That's
So
beautiful.
that I can reach out to everyone. And those tend to be things like veterans groups, women's organizations,
Right.
people who I think need it.
Right.
I
That,
also have people at like the executive suite level who've lost their jobs. And I have a talk with them of, yeah, I'm pretty sure you had a decent severance package.
yeah, I mean,
And
people have a savings account too, right? I
yes,
mean, hopefully, God
I
willing.
will. Yeah. And I will say this, I tell people, the example you used at the start of this call was, I've lost my job and I've had 48 hours to ingest, and I come to you. One thing I tell people is, if we're in the first week or month of you losing your job, I can save you thousands of dollars in how you look at your medical and things like negotiating. People don't know they can negotiate their exit package.
Hmm.
Uh, they don't know. I've had people negotiate for an organization to pay for my services because
Mm,
companies want to be the good guy. They're like, yeah, I'll pay for your coach.
right,
That makes me feel sort of good
right.
about it. I've started to have companies come to me and say, can you advise us on our offboarding? And I'm like, finally, okay, years of working in HR. I had to
Like
leave
it's
you guys
about time.
because we do not do it well. Organizations do such, the horror stories I hear, it makes you cry.
Mhm.
So I don't know if I answered your question because there
You
was a
did.
lot in that.
No, you did. You did. And so
Um,
the obstacles are like, working with, or what I grasp it, whereas a lot of the obstacles are, working right now with the demographic who might not have all
mhm.
the funds and stuff there to invest and stuff there, and overcoming them by just having different options of
Yeah.
clients, basically, right? Kind of thing there. So don't worry. I picked up where you put down. I got
And
you.
the other thing is, when you work in a company, you have to do what they say.
Right.
Working for myself, I've had clients who've wanted to pay top tier, and I'm like, I don't want to work with you.
Right.
And I have said, I just politely say, I'm not for you. Let me give you a list of names.
Right. The breakup.
There are
Speak-
also
I get it.
people who I say, like, okay, I get that you're somewhere in between.
Hmm.
Tell me what you can offer, and
Right.
I'll work with you. And I do that. It's a bit of a sliding scale. So don't ever think that you can't afford a coach.
Right.
Uh, it's sometimes that outside opinion that
Hmm.
is so helpful, and the support and the accountability. Uh,
Right.
and that is sometimes worth it. All my people get jobs,
Right.
but I also think they go back to work healthier.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that though. And it's something that you said and stuff. Or at least it kind of got a thought in my head going. I have a lot of people in my inbox and stuff, and they'll share their life with me. And I really, really appreciate that from the bottom of my heart.
Mhm.
However, I'm aware enough to know that what I do might not be for everyone. If you tell me you
Exactly.
were just laid off and that you are looking for, I've literally had people ask me for like career coach guidance and stuff there, and I'm like, I'm a marketing strategist. I don't know if I'm the
Hmm.
best person to help you with the way you need help
Yeah.
with what you've shared with me. And the last thing I ever want to do is take someone's money and not feel confident that I'm able to help their life 110%. And so for the people that have come to me, or if you're watching this, or if you found me, or you found this podcast or episode anywhere, and you are either think you might lose your job, or maybe you just want to possibly move in a different direction, I highly suggest you get in touch with Sabina for that reason. I feel like she can help you and honestly help you nurture yourself back to life. Because when you're in the rat race, right? You're
Hmm.
so used to that 9 to 5, and your life becomes, I can't speak for everyone. I can only speak for myself. I had 3 jobs at one time before I walked away from all three. And I got a text message from Uber, and it was like, you're ready to drive. I had only been driving for 8 months of my life.
I love that though.
And I walked out of that call center and I don't remember what excuse I gave them people. If they're watching right now, hi. But it was definitely fabricated. It was real, but it was it was exaggerated. And I needed a fallback plan just in case I did land on my butt so I could crawl back somewhere. Um, Everyone was late to work. I was the world's worst Uber driver. If you got in my car, you got love, old lady
I was
church,
going to say though, yeah.
and many water bottles, but you did not get to work on time. I got all 5 stars though. So it told me I was sunshine on a rainy day. I say all that to say, you guys, that even though I understand what you're going through, I feel like Sabina can help you to where you're actually trying to get to in your next career, right? I'm all about creating your business, helping your business flourish, like the business you already have kind of thing. I feel like if you're in that in between space, that dark space that I know we all know,
Oh,
right? Everyone can relate to that. She's your girl.
Aw.
There you go. Like,
But I want to say something though, because first of all, I used to manage a call center, so I completely understand why you would walk away.
right.
And I will
Oh my
say
God.
this, someone just walking off the job at a call center was no big deal. It happened all the time. People would change their cell phone numbers on me, not show up for shifts, and I get
No.
it. So much tension and uh, panic, anxiety. Call centers are just very, very difficult environments for everybody involved.
Right.
So kudos to you for having done that work. But you did something that I think we're starting to look at as Americans in the workplace of you're setting the boundaries that are good for you and you're picking the course of life that's best for you. This is a huge change that we've seen out of the pandemic. There was this phrase that everyone used called the Great Resignation, where everybody was rethinking things. I hate to tell you that did not come out of the pandemic. That phrase was actually coined way before the pandemic. But the younger workplace generations, millennials and Gen Zers, want to feel fulfilled in their jobs, or they want to at least feel in control.
Right.
And I think, thank you, older generations are now saying, well, wait a minute, I want that too.
Like,
And we're starting to do that. We're starting to want the well-balanced lives we had during the pandemic. Like, I liked having dinner with my family for a change instead of being caught in traffic.
right.
I liked streaming a show together. I liked cleaning my closet, or at least I felt accomplished doing it. We now want full lives. We want to work to live, not live to work, but we
Right.
still want that fulfillment. So this is an oncoming trend, and this is something I think we both help people do in different ways.
Right.
And I think that's a change in the mindset that organizations are going to have to get on board with. But
Please.
I
Absolutely.
want people to look at being out of work as this is your opportunity to do that. And an obligation to yourself, to be honest. And you can't take care of your family if you're not happy and fulfilled.
Right.
And how you work, you have a lot more say than you think. So keep that in mind.
See, there you go. And I know a lot of my friends and stuff there and colleagues, associates and stuff, they're actually own organizations and have been really blessed over the years to be able to grow it out, right? Where they have
Mhm.
multiple employees and drivers and clients and all these things. So what would you say, how could they hire your services? Like what is a problem that you would be able to fix or solve in
Ooh,
their organization, do you feel like?
I love that. What I like right now is all that kind of corporate languishing I had of HR and OD and learning and everything all has come together nicely. And I want to use that for good. Uh, Things like, again, I said a couple of companies have approached me and said, will you either train our staff or take a look at our offboarding and see how we could improve? And I love that it is done so badly. The things I'm hearing from people of just my key card no longer lets me get in the building. That's how I know I'm out of a job. Or I was sent an email.
Don
Um,
Lemon, what is it? Don Lemon? Is that? Please, I'm praying I'm saying his name right.
Yeah.
But yeah, he found out on his day off that he didn't have a job after what was 16 years?
A lot of people are, that's how a lot of people are hearing it. People are being called back from vacation. When I was let go the last time, I walked into a call that was supposed to be about my professional development, and it was a Zoom call because we were staying at home, and there's my boss in HR, and I'm like, wow, this is never good. And it lasted all of 3 minutes where I was told you're out of a job. And then they both looked me in the eye and said, this is really hard for us.
Hard for them.
That was kind of my, I'm like, okay, this might be recorded, so I should just watch myself. And
Your
I'm like,
inner
well,
dialogue's going crazy.
thank you. And I'm thinking, I'm really sorry my being out of work is difficult for you,
Mm,
kind of thing. And I letting someone go from a job should never be something a human being relishes
right,
or looks forward to doing. It
right,
is necessary in business.
right,
There's a way, I think it's a privilege, and I've had to do it as a manager, as an HR person, to give someone humanity in probably one of the roughest moments of their lives.
right,
And organizations don't do that.
right,
It's so uncomfortable. Everyone wants it over immediately. And that's why people walk away with it was personal, it was such a horrible experience, because we didn't address that human element. I think if we did that, people would be more understanding of, okay, it's not personal, it was a business decision, I don't like it, but at
right.
least you're treating me like a person. You're
Exactly.
answering my questions. When I left my job, I had to return my laptop. I was told, oh, get in touch with this admin to make arrangements. In the mail, they sent me the FedEx label, but no box. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. So I go over to the FedEx office with the label, and they're like, well, you have to pay for the box. It's $25. So not only am I unemployed, now I'm paying to return equipment. And
Right,
work said, well, you can drive to our offices and return it in person. They were 45 minutes away.
right,
Like,
right.
okay.
And why would you even want to walk in there anyway? Like they just gave you
Yeah,
the boot. Like,
yeah, yeah. And I'm like, no one thought this little part through. So I work with companies of, are all your systems in alignment, and do they all work to make this an easy process? It's the equivalent of breaking up with someone and them calling you back saying like, hey, do you have my coffee pot? Um, you know, get a new one, go to Walmart. Um, so I help, getting back to the original question, I went down a rabbit hole.
okay.
I work with organizations for that. I've had organizations ask me for boxes of my book to hand to
Mm,
people.
okay.
I take coaching clients from organizations. I have done a group call of, these are the things you need to do to get your house in order.
Right.
So those are things that I've worked with a company to do. Another thing that I'm so happy someone reached out to me about,
Mhm.
they listened to the podcast and they said, it's dawned on me that a couple of people who are starting have been out of work for a while. Is there
Right.
anything I should keep in mind? And I'm like, thank you. Yes. This person is coming back to work. It's a big deal. They're a little traumatized. They
Mm.
need your support. I think back to a client who reached out to me and said, you got a job. And he said, my problem is I love my manager, but she has a habit of coming by my desk and leaning over and saying, can I talk to you for a minute?
Ugh.
And he said, that's exactly how my old corporation let me go.
Oh my God.
And he said, every time she does this, he just
Classic.
dies inside a little bit. And he finally had a conversation with her of, you're bringing back all these memories. It's a flashback. And she's like,
Oh,
I'm really sorry. I had no idea. How do we make this friendlier? And they worked through that together. But you do have to understand, bringing someone into your workplace as a new employee, they might have gone through this trauma, and you do need to be understanding of that, because you've
mm,
invested in this employee. You want them there for a while. Show them
right.
they're valued, recognize their accomplishments, um,
Okay.
go gently.
So you can help organization transition their new employees into their organization
Mhm.
after they've been unemployed for a long time.
Absolutely.
And you can help them configure the perfect seamless exit strategy so that they don't have a PR like really icky situation, basically, right? From basically breaking up with someone in a messy way and not thinking about the emotional turmoil that could happen if it's not done in a certain manner. Is that right? Am I doing
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it.
it? And stuff there. So when they get your book, though, right? So when companies get your book, and I mean, like, I might be having a blonde moment, bear with me, but do you think that it would make the person feel bad? Is this after a person's been fired? So the company
Yeah,
ordered a box of your books, right?
yeah,
And stuff there. Do they give the book, then they're fired, or they're fired, then they get the book, and then they talk to you? Help me
yeah.
understand.
So one thing, and this is not on you, the word fired, I think, is kind of like, let's stop using that because,
Oh,
oh my
let
gosh, the
go.
visual that happens with that and everything. I'm not sure I like the word separated either. I think we need to relook at the whole vocabulary that we put around.
Right. The vernacular in
I
terms of
I I I
letting
would
go.
not say like, going up to someone saying, "Hey, I read this book. I thought you'd be really interested in it," and then
Line
walking
across the
away.
desk.
Don't do that.
Okay.
I think it's a resource to maybe send someone after they've been told the news.
Okay.
Uh, I've had people say, like, "Can I send the book? And then will you do like a quick consult with somebody?" I
Mhm.
prefer to do those in a group setting. Otherwise, it's just a lot of time for me. Um, I think offering the resource because when organizations let people go, they offer the EAP, which is the Employee Assistance Program. They offer that number. I look at my book as the same kind of in that same genre of resources to help.
Mhm.
I think that's fine, but it should be done as somebody has exited, or for example, for me, my last job that I exited, I was told in October, and I was told, "Oh, you have till the end of the year to work here," which was weird. I'll admit it. It was super weird.
Okay.
Um, and again, I make dating analogies, but it was like breaking up with someone and still living in the same domicile. You're like, okay, I don't know how to do this. The idea was I could look for other work in the organization,
Mhm.
say goodbyes, offload projects. Still awkward. But even in that situation, I think we have to think that people are professional.
Mhm.
They act unprofessionally when we treat them unprofessionally. So
Right.
giving a resource if someone's going to be around for a while of the book, I list things you need to do immediately. Taking care of your health care is an immediate thing. Getting your financial house in order is an immediate thing. If I had known I had time to play with, I could have started doing those things
Mhm.
uh, while I still had an income coming in. One of the number one things people tell me is if I'd known I was going to lose my job, I would have gotten a home equity loan
Mm.
or I would have bought that car. Um, because, of course, you have to list whether or not you have a job.
Right.
And that gives you that room to do that so that you can have that nest egg, or if your vehicle's unreliable, you're one less thing to worry about while you're looking for a job. So I think it's a great resource to give at that time.
Mhm.
Um, I would make sure they know that they're being impacted, rather
In a
than
huge
sending a
way.
cryptic message. That's that old way that we want to get away from. Like, here,
Right.
take the hint. No, let's not do that. That would be okay. I'm going to have three books in a row, and they're three different books, and whichever one you unwrap, yeah, let's not do that.
You want the red or blue pill kind
Yeah,
of.
exactly. Which box do you want?
So that's why I was like, how is it dispersed? Because in my head, I just had the most comical little cartoon go over it. I was like,
Uh-huh.
I should ask her. I should ask
No,
because I was like, I'm sure you could just clear it up for me. So how do you create that safe space though for your clients to discuss their concerns and challenges related to work and stuff? Because I'm sure it's not okay. They automatically 100% trust you.
no.
Now they're telling you their whole life, or is it that way?
Well, so I go back to when I was writing the book and I was working with an editor.
Mhm.
And I will say this, my editor came from this journalism newspaper. They'd won awards. Uh, point of view. And if you've read my book, if you've listened to one of my early podcasts, I talk very honestly about how I felt losing my job. And I'm normally a private person. For this, I let it all hang out. And I talked about how, what I felt those first few minutes, the numbness, everything else. And my editor had written in a corner note in the introduction, like, "Are you sure you want to come off this way?" And I asked her about it in a meeting. She's like, "Well, you sound like a victim. It's very emotional." She admitted, she said, "I just stopped reading it. It was so emotional." And your readers are going to look at you through this lens. I'm like, I think they have to. I think they have to know I stood where they're standing right now.
Right.
I felt all of that grief and shame and lack of confidence, and it's not pleasant. And I think knowing that I've been through what the people I coach have been through is this bonding thing immediately. I hear all the time from people saying, like, "Oh my God, I thought it was just me." I'm like, no, every day I hear about it. It's okay to feel whatever you're feeling with me. And I make that abundantly clear. And I let people talk about it.
Right.
Uh, and it's not a reflection of your abilities or your future. It's again this thing where I don't judge you. I don't. Um, Again, why are we judged by losing our jobs when it's something so out of our control? Um,
True.
and to me, that's the saddest reality of it. Um,
No,
we
but that
feel
makes perfect.
horrible for decisions other people who have control of us have made.
Right. And then kind of just like wallow and then
And
don't
that's
really
the
like tell
thing.
anybody. Like,
Yeah, yeah. And why do I have to act like I did something wrong? I didn't. And I think that's one of the things I tell people. And we work on building that better relationship, or that better relationship with ourselves, and that confidence. So I think it's the fact that everything you're feeling is all right with me,
right.
but I'm also going to, let's use that so you can move forward, because the best way to get past it is to move forward.
What about when somebody is self-employed and now it wasn't an organization that let them go, it was them? Like, what happens when you let yourself go, right? Literally, you have to close your business. You're not making the money
Okay.
that you thought. Like self-employment, like, the entrepreneurial life, it wasn't the dream that you thought was going to happen. And stuff there. And maybe it was marketing, maybe it was clients, maybe there was a bump in the road. And now you're sitting there like, sheesh, I just like fired myself. Right. So like when people come to you after that and they are experiencing severe burnout, right?
Yeah,
Where do you kind
that
of go from
is
there?
that is such an amazing question, because I'm facing that right now with people. I've had those questions myself. Like, am I being effective? Should I be doing this, or should I go back to 9 to 5?
Right.
Only you can make that decision for yourself. I'm not going to make it for you.
Of course.
I always try to get people to do the same thing of, first of all, you didn't fail.
Mhm.
You did nothing wrong.
Right.
It might have just been things out of your control, such as maybe it wasn't the right time for what you were doing.
Hmm.
Maybe you learned what you needed to learn so you can take that to a 9 to 5 job. You said this earlier, and I love that you said this. There's no shame in that, having a job to pay bills. We all have to do that.
Right.
And yes, oh my gosh, please, I would never judge anybody for that. Don't be so hard on yourself. And
Right.
usually what I do in this case is I talk out with somebody, like, what did you learn from this? Did you maybe learn, going back to that self-awareness of,
Right.
maybe I was in the wrong industry,
Mhm.
and now I know there's another industry I can take my skill set to. What skills did I learn as an entrepreneur that I'm taking to that new job?
Right.
Um, I learned how to be a leader. I learned finance. I learned law. Can I take that to maybe a better level job than when I was working 9 to 5 before?
Right.
it's different for every person. I think the important thing is, let's not sugarcoat it. If there was something you didn't do right, like I look back and think, why did I wait to do that? What was I thinking? And you can't beat yourself up. You can only go, all right, so this is what I learned, and this is how I'm going to use that information moving forward. I think it's the same if you're going from entrepreneur back to uh, the corporate world or the work world, is that same thing.
Right.
We evolve constantly. How did you evolve? How are you going to take that to be successful to the next level?
Mhm.
How do you determine what that level should be, what that industry should be, what that role should be? Um, nobody nobody gains from that kind of self uh, abuse of,
Self-loathing.
yes, no one gains from that.
Yeah, and stuff there. Yes. So like literally, because I mean, I've literally seen people beat themselves up and stuff there. And I've had close friends and stuff there go through the same thing. And I've literally had to be that person where I was like, okay, she might hate me and like never talk to me again, but I'm gonna tell her. I was like, I feel like you're kind of really hard on yourself to the point where you might be making yourself sick. And I don't want to be the person that coddles you right now and says, okay, what you're saying is okay, because words have power, just like actions. And I was like, I feel like it's not going to be a good end result if I don't say something now. And I basically laid it all out as brutal as possible, but as gently brutal as possible. I don't know. I care. And when you love someone so much, you don't want to see anyone suffer, right? And so, with that being said, though, I did want to share something. I think this is like the first time I've ever said it. But so before last year, so 2022, 2021, right? I was really, really excited. My family still does the food trailers, and I was seeing that shipment was still being affected by COVID.
Mhm.
Everything is kind of still affected by COVID. It's just not as in our faces, right?
Right.
I took a week. It took me a week to start a trucking company. Super. My family was like, you still helping us on the back end. Summertime's coming up. Why don't you just do trucking and focus on trucking in the fall? Perfect. First day of fall, was back in trucking. So I was back in it. It was amazing. I'm not gonna lie, it basically paid for Thanksgiving, Christmas,
Mhm.
New Year's, all the things. Fastest money ever obtained, stressful money, most stressful money ever obtained.
Right.
Never worked in such a male dominated industry. I thought that food trailers were a little rough around the edges, but then like I outsourced the entire thing. You know when you have a seamless plan and then things go a completely different way?
No, nothing about that. I know nothing about that.
Nothing about it. Like everything was supposed to go so smooth. And I was like,
Hmm.
I've just cured the common cold,
Yeah,
basically.
it was so beautiful in my head.
I mean, it was a garden that was like it was amazing. And then all of a sudden reality hit and I was like, this is a
Hmm.
lot. Um,
Yeah.
Hired a dispatcher. In my head, I would never have to talk about my drivers, where they're going. My dispatcher got a truck and wanted to hire me as a dispatcher because I learned how to do his job and surpassed
Hmm.
because that's my personality, right? And
Hmm.
so, like all the fun stuff. Long story short, 2022 comes, January and February, a little bit into March. Me and my son have COVID. My
Hmm.
drivers are sick. My virtual assistant is sick, and everything is at a standstill. Driver owns the truck. However, I'm still co-responsible for the insurance and stuff there or something. And
Right.
so like I have all this money coming out, nothing coming in. So I had to let my trucking company go or keep it out of vanity. I was very
Yeah.
public about how much I love the industry, was sharing posts in my journey. I had people in my inbox asking me for help, and I felt like a failure letting it go. But I had two other companies that were self-sufficient and everything was going to tank if I
Right.
didn't let that go. And so that's why I wanted to ask you about
Hmm.
burnout and how would you like address that? Because I feel like it's such a, people don't talk about it enough.
No.
Everyone's just kind of like push through it. And sometimes you got to stop pushing.
Yeah. Well, you bring up a really good point in that, first of all, knowing when something is causing pain to other areas of your life. And for you, it was
Right.
other areas of business plus the personal life. And it does take courage to say, I need to shift gears. But you
Right.
also need to give yourself credit for having that foresight and that courage to do that. To leave something is, to me, a sign of that self-awareness
Right.
and that alignment. You're right. This is no longer serving me,
Right.
and not sure it's serving anyone else. And I know that's hard to do when it's your baby, like you said.
Right.
The burnout thing, we don't realize when we're in burnout.
Mm.
That's when, like, we need friends like you to come up to us and say, like, no, you've got to stop. Uh, and that's why your friend group is so important. Uh, you can get burnt out on unemployment,
Right.
applying for jobs every day, the interview process, things like that. I think it's where that
Rejection.
balance of life is important. There's a really good book called The Fun Habit, and
Mm.
it talks about having fun is the antidote to burnout, in that uh, it gets all the endorphins released and makes us feel good for a moment. And it's a weird way of self-care. And that kind of balances it out. If you're not having fun doing anything,
Right.
you will get burnout. No matter how profitable, it won't matter because you'll be so burnt out you can't enjoy it.
Right.
It's a fine line between that tenacity you had with building up your business, and you do need to put a lot into it to keep it going, but then you need that mirror, be it yourself or someone else, of telling you, like, you've crossed the line. You've gone from putting your life into your business to the business taking your life.
Right.
And that's where you have to stop and make that decision of ending. It doesn't mean forever. It can be, I'm taking 2 years off and coming back to it. There's so many successful entrepreneurs who did that.
Right. Right.
And you, again, we're never settled in life. We keep moving, and we have to address that in the fact that um, what you have, enjoyed in the moment, because it will change very quickly. That's how life works.
Right.
And you need to be the one who controls that change as much as you can, or how you react to it.
Right. And letting one thing go doesn't mean other things in your life won't
Absolutely.
flourish and stuff too. I can say that at my absolute lowest point personally, last year and stuff there, I'm not super duper religious. I don't want to lie to you or anyone watching. I'm more
I wasn't
spiritual, you
expecting it, but thank you.
things. Like I'm more like spiritual, so I'm not gonna go down the forbidden path and let you guys know that like I was at church every day. But I did pray on it. I'm not gonna lie,
Yeah.
because I feel like when you feel like really, really lost and stuff there, it can help as an anchor. I prayed on it and stuff there. You know, you have this little baby. I'm feeling like really guilty because I'm like, your mom's supposed to be like Oprah by now. What am I doing? Literally, like that's like these are the thoughts in my head every day. Like I wake up and I'm like, another day not Oprah. We're just gonna keep working towards it though, because I have enough. so, so all the fun stuff. But long story short, I go down my own rabbit holes. 2 weeks later, I have one of the biggest financial testimonies that I could ever imagine. I went live every single day and I decided I'm going to take all of my knowledge and I'm going to leverage my knowledge and just
Mhm.
teach people every day. I'm going to focus on growing my Facebook groups. I'm going to focus on growing my platforms. I'm going to learn about TikTok and just go out on a limb, because at this point, what do I have to lose?
Exactly.
And stuff there. I was able to generate over $14,000 in less
Wow.
than 2 weeks, and just leveraging my knowledge
Mhm.
and stuff there, and which I'm very grateful for. You guys don't even want to know what I had to pay to get out of trucking. But that could be like a whole nother segment. But yes, but I am just so grateful for people like you to be able to help with the mindset wise and stuff there, because we go through so much and a lot of us don't even realize what we're
Yeah.
going through until we just sit down and write down what is everything that I've accomplished and how do I feel now that I've gotten there? What do
Mhm.
am I still lacking? So What advice, though, would you give to someone who gets your services and they're like, oh, well, I have you now. I don't need a counselor.
That's a really great question. I tell people very early on, like, I am not to take the place of a therapist. In the
Yeah.
book, I even say, when you get a job and you get benefits,
Mhm.
I did this. Consider therapy because you've been through that trauma. I'm not licensed, qualified to actually talk you through it. I just want to make people aware of it and some practices they can do to address it. Once I got a 9 to 5 job again, I went to therapy, and I say to people, like, you might be told you're fine. It's
Right.
like checking under the hood of a car. You want to know that no, you're doing fine. These are the things that you should be doing. In the event that there is an issue, you need to address it. You're able to do it
Mhm.
because you do want to move forward and have that life that you deserve.
Right.
I told you, you asked me my favorite story, and I shared that individual
Right.
who has had a very tough life.
Mhm.
And we've had conversations about the fact that, I'm not your therapist. I'm your coach. There's a big difference, but I do support you. And they told me very early on, they said, I see a therapist. They know what I say to you. You know what I say to them for the most part. And like, okay, great. I don't need to know what they say to you. Prefer not to. But yes, I'm glad that you have that, because let's face it, I deal with people who have things that are outside of my realm of education and expertise, and I recognize that.
Right.
But I always encourage people, that goes to part of that healing and being the best person you can be for yourself and your family. And that if you feel you need it,
Mhm.
go for it. Like, we don't have a stigma about it anymore, I think.
I don't
Um,
know. It depends, right?
yeah.
What is it there? My family, a part of my family says like small town and stuff like that,
No, no, my
like the
family too.
counseling equals crazy. It does it to me, you guys. I'm pro
Hmm.
counseling. I'm just saying that there are
Yeah.
some other people that we're still working on out there. But the stigma has definitely calmed down over the years, especially since the 90s.
Yeah. And you mentioned again that organizations are looking at, uh, health, mental health for people, self-care, being these organizations that want to make sure that people are addressing that at the workplace. And it's a fine line, because I want to give you resources, but I don't want to make that judgment, diagnosis, and treatment for you. It
Right.
is to make sure that you are being mindful and you have the opportunity for self-care at work. But we're also talking about another means of mental health that goes beyond that. Like, you know, uh, when you do kind of first aid or pampering as opposed to a medical issue.
Right.
And there are those lines that we do have to be conscious of. I think that's why we don't do letting employees go well, because people are afraid like we're crossing that boundary. You're not, by showing them compassion. Compassion is what we should all be doing for each other,
Right.
and be
Right.
mindful of that.
I love that and stuff. And I know that a lot of people that follow me and stuff, their own credit repair businesses, such as myself and stuff. And a lot of our clients are actually going through a lot about what we talked about today. And I feel that it might be beneficial to suggest to our clients your services.
Oh, thank you.
I know that a lot of my clients are going to see this now. You guys, I suggest your services. So to put it in layman's terms. I don't.
And I will say this, like, I'm not a financial expert.
Right. But
I
you help
help
with
you
the
budget.
mindset. Exactly,
And
stuff there. So, like, for example, right, like owning a credit repair business, we're more so like the financial counselors
mhm,
and stuff there. We go into all that stuff. But I have had clients, I have had more than a handful that are out of work and stuff there. They have a good savings and stuff. They have a two-person household and stuff. They want to go into their next part of their career. I'm not a person that might not be the best suitable to help them in that realm, although I can relate.
mhm.
That's kind of where it ends. I'm not gonna lie to you. So,
Well,
so, so
I I think what you're bringing up, though, is really important. If you go into some kind of coaching or credit counseling or anything like this, life does not happen in a vacuum or a silo. It is never one area of life that's being impacted. And I'm fine with anyone I talk to having more than one coach,
Right.
having someone they talk to, like, I am not going to legally advise you. I'm not going to help you start your business. Like, I can give you ideas of branding and talk out ideas with you, but if you want someone to help you file paperwork and something, not me, but I know people.
Right.
And
Exactly.
you should we should have these teams of experts and people helping us.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I was like, I'm looking at their background right now and stuff, and where it says, "Was it helping you thrive while out of work?" and stuff
Yes.
there. I'm like squinting and stuff there. My glasses need
That's
to
the book cover behind me.
there we go. Thank you. I'm sorry, but yes, and stuff there. So some people need help to thrive while in work.
Yeah.
There's no shame with that. And a lot of people want that extra hands on and stuff. I mean, a lot of my clients already know, yes, I do offer one-on-one assistance and stuff there that's more so business aspects wise, brand, all that fun stuff, all that stuff there. But when it comes to more so what you do, I feel like they would really benefit from that, especially for the people that feel like they're stuck at their
Hmm.
job. They
Yeah.
don't know how to get to the next job or what to do in between or how to fix their mindsets to get to that next place, to even qualify or feel like they're qualified for that next job. So things of that nature. And I feel like if we all kind of just work together and stuff and be able to refer people to who could best suit their needs, we'd all be kind of in a better place. Like I can help you with your credit score, but I don't want for you to like, go and tank it afterwards or not
Hmm.
know what to do with this new funding that you've acquired and stuff too, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, all the fun stuff. But
And
go ahead. I'm
I
sorry.
think you're hitting on something real quick, that it's a buyer beware.
Right.
You have to set your own boundaries in it as an individual. I've had clients say, like, this current line of coaching is not working for me.
Right.
And I'm glad they speak up. It's like, great. If it's not me working well with you, if you need someone else, I'll help you find someone. If it's that we need to change strategies, you have to, we're here as experts to help, but
Right.
you have to be the guider and the owner of your life, your existence,
Right.
and decide, we're part of your team, but you are ultimately your team and your team leader.
Right.
And that is your job. One is you,
Yeah.
and we support you. So vet us, find someone who is aligned with you, who works with you, meaning there's that sync, that kind of instant click that you feel comfortable, vulnerable, and safe with. So that's my PSA for coaching.
I love it. I love it. And I thank you for it. Now,
Yay.
before we end, because I know I've taken up your time, but I
Oh,
appreciate
I've loved this. This has
talking
been
to
great.
you. I know I was like, oh, it'll just be like 20 minutes. And
Yeah.
then clearly we're past that time, but I have just loved talking to you so much. And I am
Right
just
back
so
at you.
grateful for your time. Now, before we leave though, do you
Mhm.
have any closing words for anyone watching and where they can find you? All
Yeah.
the good stuff.
Okay, so where you can find me, first of all, LinkedIn is really a great place to find me. I'm not a huge social media person, but because it's so professionally oriented, I find it a safe social media place for people. I post all the time. I share things. Sabina Sulat, Sulat. I am the only one. I'm like Tigger. I'm the only one that you can find. I have the Agile Unemployment podcast that is on most podcast platforms: Spotify, Apple, Samsung. I have my own site. You just go Agile Unemployment Podcast and it comes up. The book, it's on Amazon. It's in brick and mortar places. The book is also Agile Unemployment. Those are the best ways to reach me. I have a website, reworkingworks.com, and I'll make sure that's all in all of the notes for the show. So those are ways to reach me. Look for some things happening in the future that I'm excited about, a new book, a course or two, all kinds of things. So inquiries for anything. Uh, corporate work, individual coaching, group coaching. I speak to groups about owning your employment. And that brings me to the takeaway. I had a client who recently, we were doing a little practice for her negotiating. She had gotten an offer and she seemed really hesitant to push back. And I said, I've done the market survey. They're offering you below rate. These are all of your accomplishments. And she got really quiet and she goes, I just realized I'm the asset here. And I'm like, yes, you are. We are all assets. We all have something to offer. And you need to remind yourself of that every day and realize in this, if you're interviewing, if you're working right now, it's a mutual thing. It's not just an organization accepting you or deciding to take you in or keep you. You are deciding the exact same thing for the organization. That's a benefit of COVID, of the pandemic, is that employees are starting to see their worth. Organizations are slower to come around. We've got to be a little patient and educate them, but be confident in who you are and what you offer and make others value you. That's my big takeaway.
That was so good. I'm just so proud of you.
Thank you.
I just got over here was like fangirling, like, oh my God. But you guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Holiday Impact podcast. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next episode.